Yeah, it's a great neighborhood. You know,
Oh.
I had a wonderful time growing up here.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in the yellow house on the left down on Gray Street. I'm sorry, I don't remember the address.
When we walk
but
by,
when we
point
walk
it
by,
out. I'll tell you who lived there before you, probably.
Yeah,
before
sure.
your family.
Sure.
Let me just stop right here. Turns out, if you've been born and raised in the town of Waterford like Jack Lawler, and also been the town supervisor for 30 years, you tend to know everybody.
And these houses on the right here, they were owned by the bourgeois family. This brick house in front of us, that was the Burnish family. And the White House over there, that's Fredette.
Yep.
And on the bottom, I don't know if you know this, maybe you do, that was the barber shop. And this house here, Michael Dumas. Great baseball pitcher for Waterford. as a
Oh,
matter of
really?
fact, yeah. The other side of the street here was the Bishan family lived over here. Next door to that is Mitchell.
Okay, well, I think you get the idea. So back to the story.
So yeah, I mean, we knew all the families.
Yep.
You know, we
You knew everybody.
knew everybody knew everybody.
Yeah.
But you're right. There's a huge French influence here
Oh.
because of, I believe, the textile mills drew in the people
You're right.
from
Yep.
the French Canadians.
Yep.
So there's a few people in the series that talk about that. So it was a great street to grow up on.
Oh, it was so cool.
So yeah, it was a good time, and you know, it was safe, it was quiet, but it was never boring.
No,
You know?
no, we had to find ways to amuse ourselves. So no, it wasn't boring. That house across the street, that was by Brisson.
Yeah,
That was owned by the
Brisson.
Brisson family. The
Yep.
interesting thing is that Mr. Brisson, George Brisson, he was a Saratoga County sheriff. He was the celebrity
Oh, I
of the
didn't know
community
that.
at
I
the
didn't know
time.
that.
Yeah, he was a sheriff.
Interesting.
Yep.
So I grew up on that flat over there,
Uh-huh.
and my bedroom window was right to the left of the one that's the bay window that sticks out.
Yep, that was the Denolf house.
Yeah.
Yep.
Jake's
We
lived there.
called them Denos, but it was Denolf.
Yeah.
We were supposed to say. Johnny Friedat had a barber shop on,
okay.
on the basement where that the brickwork is.
The father of the.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Bill Friedat owned the painting company. He lives up around the pond.
Yeah.
This was his brother, Johnny. I think he did work with his brother as a painter, but he also ran a barber shop right there for a long time.
Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting.
Somebody took the sign for St. Anne's Church. That's great. They grabbed a little piece of memorabilia.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
probably Norm.
Yeah, oh,
That-
sure.
Yeah.
I used to live there in the Bova house
Uh-huh.
downstairs,
Yep.
and this was Randy Snay,
You're right, the Snake family. I'd forgotten about that. Yeah.
Jason Messier.
Oh yeah, that's Messier. They're all the Messier kids.
Yeah.
There was, let's see, Michael, the oldest brother. Boy, his name escapes me for the moment. He was my brother's age.
Uh huh.
They're still there, aren't they? I think Messiers.
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Might be, yeah.
So which
Yeah.
house did you grow up in?
Oh, we got to go way down to get to my house.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah. That house across the street, that used to be a store. That was the corner grocery store.
That was the corner grocery store?
Yeah, that was Rivet's corner grocery store when growing up as a kid. In fact, I actually worked there. I worked the penny candy counter.
Did you really?
Yeah, I did.
Right
I think
there?
I was about 12 years old.
Oh,
we
that's
didn't, We didn't have
fantastic.
quite the same laws, but yeah, I made $0.25 an hour working for.
A quarter an hour?
I made $0.25 an hour working actually for LaForce. Norm's father bought that store.
Yeah.
He bought the store from Rivet, and it's funny because
And what
they
year
actually,
was that, like, transferred?
Oh, I wouldn't even guess.
60s?
No, late 60s.
Late
Yeah,
60s?
yeah. And the LaForce family, Norm,
Yeah.
and the rest of the guys lived upstairs, and the store was that whole first floor there.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was a store.
Yeah, it was a corner grocery store.
Somebody
Yep.
else mentioned there were a couple of bars here. I know the
Oh,
Bear
I'll point them out to you as they
Roots
go
was
by.
here.
I might have had a beer in some of them.
Oh, yeah?
Yep.
I know the Bear Roots was there.
Yeah, that was there a long time. Yeah. The interesting about this street is, from here on down, not only was everybody neighbors and knew one another,
Yep.
but at least 6 men on this street all worked together at the same place at Iroquois Millwork.
Oh, okay.
Norm's dad worked there
And where was that?
in Albany.
Oh, it was
Yeah.
in Albany.
They
okay.
were either mill workers in the mill. I mean, they were all blue collar guys. They were mill workers in the mill, or they drove truck. And my dad and a couple other guys were truck drivers.
Oh, they were?
Yeah, for the company.
That was
Yeah.
a lumber company?
Yeah, they built Anderson windows.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Now,
I
what
think
did your
it's been sold.
what did your mom do?
My mom was a seamstress. in those mills you can see on the other side of the river.
Really?
It was an interesting thing about her back in the day. You didn't get paid by the salary always, by a salary or an hour. It was called piecework. You got paid by how many pieces,
Garments?
yeah, garments you pinned up. They were pinning up shirts, and you know all those pins and all that. Somebody has to put them in.
Somebody has to put them in.
And she was one of those people. That work all went overseas, of course, eventually.
Yeah, we don't
Yeah.
make many textiles here,
No,
right?
nope, unfortunately.
But yeah, we're on Clifton Street,
Yep.
and
Greenhouse with the Perrier family. Yep, Susan
Wow.
lived in that house. Yep.
I lived in this White House down here,
Uh-huh.
and I want to believe the owner's name. I remember everyone called him Rainey.
Rainy.
I don't remember. My mom would know his name,
The
but
greenhouse here?
No.
This was this. No.
Oh, you're
the greenhouse on the second floor was Ed Paskowitz, and Ed was also an Iroquois guy. The house across the street, the reddish one.
the red. Yep.
Yeah, that was Ayotte, the Ayotte family.
Ayotte. Okay.
And this house here, the blue one,
Yep.
this was the Cunningham family. He worked there too. He
Okay.
worked- yeah, he
Wow.
worked
Everybody worked at Iroquois. Look at that cute
A
dog.
lot.
Hey, buddy. How are you?
No, that's okay. No, that's a big dog.
Yes.
Yep. And this house here, this is the one you lived in?
I lived upstairs.
This was owned back when I was a kid by Mr. Jackson, and everybody called him Mr. Jackson. And
Okay.
I don't. It was him and his wife. They were both elderly, more older than most of the people than the adults on the street.
Yeah.
But very, very nice people. And I don't know if they still have it. Well, we used to very quietly go in. He had a grapevine back there, a big grapevine.
Okay.
And maybe we came in and picked a few grapes now
Hey,
and then.
we all did that, right?
Yep. This here was a bar.
Yeah, this was
It was originally
Walkers.
Was
Walkers.
the name of it.
Right.
Walkers. It was originally Walkers, then the Bare Roots. It was a good bar.
Surprisingly, Clifton Street, back in its heyday, was home to several bars and nightclubs, which was kind of odd for a suburban, quiet neighborhood street.
It was a fun bar. Oh, wait a second. The green fourplex up there.
Yeah.
That we walked by.
Yep.
That was Otto's.
Otto's.
It was originally Humphreys,
Yeah.
and he lives up around Swayze Acres. That was a big bar down there. The whole first floor was
Okay.
a bar. So on the second floor, the Garrity family lived up there. But that bar, and then it became Otto's, and then Otto sold it to George. It became George's Rendezvous.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember. Probably before
I
your
don't.
time.
Yeah, I don't remember.
It became George's Rendezvous, and then they eventually it closed. Then they turned the downstairs into apartments.
Yeah.
Yep. Here, as I said, this was originally Walker's.
Yeah.
And then it became the Bare Roots, and then eventually it was the Elbow Room. It was Walker's Elbow Room.
Okay,
I think was the
okay.
official name of it. This here, Dumbrookie,
Yeah.
and he also worked at Iroquois. That used to be Corky's.
That was another bar.
Big, well-known bar.
Okay.
Drew big crowds, had good bands. This is going back in the 50s.
Oh, okay.
50s and into the 60s.
Okay.
Yeah, and Corky's was quite the place to go. It was a very popular spot. Across the street is kind of a cool story. That's a huge lot, right?
Yep.
For Clifton Street.
Yep.
That was owned by Mr. Mossy, and he was another guy you just called Mr. Mossy.
Okay.
And I don't know what he did for a living, but they were considered to be probably the more well-off family
okay.
on the
Well-to-do,
street.
yeah.
Very, very nice people. Their son Jackie Mossy, believe it or not, was a tremendous. Not believe it or not, but he was a tremendously nice kid, and he was a little older than me, but I remember him being very kind to all the younger kids on the street.
Yeah.
That street over there, First Avenue.
Yeah.
We used to play kickball there almost every night after dinner till dark.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, a bunch of us would get together. We'd play kickball there. You'd have one guy standing out on the tracks in what was right field.
Yeah.
You know. Then the ball went over into Mr. Mossy's yard. You know, somebody had to hop the fence to get the ball.
That's fantastic. We
Yeah.
did the same thing with like wiffle ball and Nerf football right in the street, like
Yep.
right below the park, because
Yep.
there was not a lot of traffic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right there we played kick the ball.
Kick the ball,
night
right
after
there.
night after night. I didn't think anybody kept score or anything like that. We just kicked the ball and ran like
Yeah.
you know.
Hey,
This was the Gilhooly family
Okay.
right here, and this gray house here is where I grew up.
The artist Gilhooly?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Steve.
Okay.
Yep. Steve and Joey were the two
And this
kids'
is,
names. I think Joey might still live there. This is where I grew up on the second floor.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Up on the second floor.
On the second floor, corner of First and Clifton. And I have to laugh sometimes growing up when my kids would complain that, you know, a neighbor was a little loud while they were trying to sleep or something, and where I lived elsewhere.
Yeah.
And I would say, I grew up 15 feet from the train tracks when they had like 10 trains a day go by.
Right,
I mean,
right.
Oh yeah, you'd be watching television and all of a sudden you couldn't hear, you had to wait. Yeah, you had to, there was no pause button, you know, you had to wait till the train went by before you could hear anything. And the same thing on these lower streets. On the corner, on the right-hand side, that was Fredette's paint store. He had a paint store. He sold
really?
paint there.
Wow.
Yeah.
I never knew that.
Yeah, it was a little paint store there, and Mr. Fredette sold paint there.
Wow.
And then I used to go down after school. I'd climb down the bank and fish underneath that bridge,
yeah.
which was, you know, a cool thing about living this close to the river.
A lot of cool spots.
Because there was always, you know, there was always a lot of water around here, and every parent's nightmare was that their kid would not realize how potentially dangerous some of these places were.
Yeah, I always told my kids don't walk on ice, you know.
Yeah.
Don't ever walk
you're
on
right.
ice.
You know, I get out, so I come out, I'd be going up here to go to school, and you just start picking up friends as you walked up.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Definitely.
You would just pick up friends, and by the time you got up to school, there'd be a group of 10 or 12 people walking up together.
Yeah, that's how we did it.
Then
you
we
know?
came home for lunch every day. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, St. Anne's didn't have a cafeteria or anything like a cafeteria.
Yeah.
So when it was time to eat, we all were told to go home and come back in an hour. I think it was an hour, maybe an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So everybody went home.
So what was your favorite lunch? Like, what did you make when you got home?
Well, you got to remember, my mom was working.
Yeah.
So now I'm in 4th grade. I'm not coming home. She's not trusting me so much to make a peanut butter jelly sandwich. So she actually had me come to a neighbor's house a few doors over on First, and lovely old lady, and older lady.
Yeah.
And she, you know, she always put a real nice lunch on for me, and then patted me on the head and sent me back to school.
Isn't that nice? See, neighborly love,
Yeah,
people.
yeah. Well, you could trust people.
Yeah.
You know, you could trust people.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Look at this old car, Jack.
Yeah.
That's a Cadillac.
I don't know if, yeah, it is. I don't know if Leroy was his name. I don't know if he,
Yeah, I know Leroy Walker.
yeah, he built this. He built this. Yeah, he was a motorcycle guy. He loved motorcycles. That was his thing. Yeah. And
So-
it was just, you know, it was just a great, like I said, everybody, and you know, because you grew up here,
Yep.
everybody knew one another.
Yeah.
And you'd walk up the street, it'd be, hello, Mr. Jackson, hello, Mr. O'Connor.
Yeah, yeah.
And, you know, and it's funny because as you got older,
Yep.
you know, as you got a little older, they would say, how's school? How's this? How's that? You know, they
Sure.
actually took a little interest in you as
Yeah.
a person.
They engaged with you.
Yeah, they
Sure.
did. Yeah. How you doing? How's school?
Yep. I wanted to ask you, I forgot what year it was, but down in the village on underneath some of the city streets, I want to say it was by Front Street, they found Native American bones.
They did.
And I wanted to, because I read that you had contacted the Iroquois chief or something to get their safe removal.
I'm not
to
sure you
preserve
have
them.
enough battery in there to hear the whole story, but we were doing a sewer project in the village of Waterford. The town is responsible for the sewer system.
The sewer system, yeah.
Including that piece of it that's in the village. The village takes care of their own roads and their own drainage,
Yep.
but the town was responsible for the sewer system. The state was requiring us, forcing us, quite frankly, to do a separation project. When rain falls, for example, into this catch basin,
Yeah.
in the village, it was being combined with the sanitary sewer, and then it was going to the plant, and in heavy rain, it was causing capacity problems at the plant.
Yeah.
And so the state, understandably, said, hey, you can't keep putting rainwater into your sewer system because you're overflowing your plant. And when you overflow your plant, the stuff that goes back to the river isn't as clean as it should be.
Okay.
So they made some money available to us, and then made some loans available to us at, you know, very, very attractive interest rates. So we started doing the project, and the contractor, I got a phone call from the engineer in charge, and he said, look, he said, we just uncovered an Indian, we just uncovered a grave.
Wow.
About 5 feet down,
Mm-hmm.
where they were putting the lines in. He said, what do you want me to do? And I said, well, don't disturb it. I said, you know, go around it and keep working. An hour later, he called me. We hit another grave. He said, we hit another. I said, what do you want? And again, he said, what do you want me to do? I said, just, you know, don't disturb it. We'll get the right people involved.
Yeah.
Just keep working. Then he hit another. He hit 3 of them.
3 of them.
And after the 3rd one, he said, "What do you want me to do?" I said, "I want you to stop digging." I said, yeah. And then it became, all right. What do we do?
So, like, how were they there? Like, was the story ever uncovered? Like, how they got there?
Yeah. Well, that whole part of the village and People's Island was a Mohegan Indian stronghold.
The Mohegan,
there was a huge village and Mohegan Indian population. There are other tribes around too, but the Mohegans are I believe, part of the Iroquois Confederacy, which is why we wound up talking to the Iroquois Nation.
Yeah.
And it was not an easy thing to get them, because they're concerned, and I could get it culturally for them. They weren't thrilled with having shore lines run over the top of their ancestors.
Yep.
So it got to be, but then to stop and start the project was millions of dollars. It was, you know, would have been $1 million, at least $1 million, probably closer to 2.
Wow.
To just change directions.
Yeah.
And so we talked and we got to know one another a little bit, and finally the chief agreed that we could reinter them over on People's Island. But interestingly, nobody in the village, very few people knew the graves were there. We were trying to protect it because crazy people, right? You know, so we actually, we put the dirt back in, we filled the holes for 2 of them. The 3rd one, we put an iron plate over the top of it, and we parked a piece of equipment on top of the iron plate. Yeah. So we agree we're going to take them out, and but the only people who could touch the bones were women.
Why?
It had to be. It was custom. Culture.
Okay.
Iroquois culture.
Interesting.
Yeah. So we had to hire archaeologists, who a couple of the women taught at University of Albany and things like that. So we got them in there. But the night before they were going to take them out, the Indians came down and did a graveside ceremony. They went in. They burned tobacco. They chanted some prayers from their culture.
Wow.
And I was down there to watch, and I'm watching. You know, it's the village, right? Nothing happens in the village that everybody doesn't know about. Within about 10 minutes, there's a small crowd of people. Yeah. You know, looking at and they knew at this point. You know, it wasn't hard to figure out. Yeah. Guy walks up to me. He said, they uncovered an Indian grave, huh? I go, yeah. He goes. And I saw them filling holes back in. He says, "You hit more than one?" I said, "Yeah, we did." He said, "Yeah." He goes, "You can't dig 4 feet down here without hitting anywhere down." And I don't know if that's true, but he said that there were grave sites commonly throughout that part of the village.
So you're saying ultimately they took these bones out and they put them on People's Island? Is that what you're saying?
They did, and in fact we had to find a very secluded, to this day the burial site has been kept a secret.
Oh, okay.
Because we don't want anybody disturbing those bones.
Okay.
And we had to have a feast over there. Everything they did revolved around food.
Wow.
And so we had a reinterment ceremony followed by a feast, which of course, you know, the town paid for everything, because at this point I'm trying just not to spend another $1 or $2 million on the sewer project. But it was really nice, and there were a couple of tribes that, when it became news, because when we started taking them out the next day, television cameras all over the place, and then we had other tribes who have land claims in court. And no, they're not Iroquois, they're ours. You can't take them out of the hole, you've got to negotiate with us.
Oh, wow.
The governor's office said, "Whatever you're going to do, just do it quick." He said, you know, and I said, okay. So we were down there taking them out, and it was, you know, I mean, I'm an archaeology fan. I love ancient history, and so watching this happen was exciting. Was interesting. Let's put it that way. And the people were out, and it turned into, like, you know, quite the event. So we get them out finally, and because it was going to rain that night, we had to get them out, because at this point all 3 holes were now open. If water had hit them, it would have been the end of the bones, which would have been a disaster. Yeah. So we have a ceremony, and the one other tribe that insisted that they were the bones, I can't remember the name of the tribe.
Budonisi?
No, can't remember the name of it. But they had moved out. They had left this area and wound up in Wisconsin, of all places. Okay. And they opened a casino. Wow. So they're a well-off tribe. The Iroquois, and it's a tragedy, that they don't have more recognition and support from the government, but they're still on a reservation, and they have some issues. Yeah. Great people though. So we had them over. So a bunch of Iroquois come down. We paid for the buses. We paid for everything.
Yeah.
They came down to watch the internment, and then a big travel bus, a beautiful luxury travel coach liner pulls in, and it's the people from Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And they get off the bus.
Wow.
And so we're having a thing, and
were they dressed in their Indian?
No. You could tell who was Iroquois and who I wish I could remember the name of the other tribe. You could tell who was who just by how they were dressed.
Yeah.
And they kind of stuck together a little bit.
Yeah.
But anyway, during the ceremony, the chief,
Yep.
he presented me with an eagle's feather.
An eagle's feather.
A
really?
lacquered eagle's feather, which he said was a high
Honor.
reward and a high honor from his tribe, because he thought how the town handled it, how we respected their culture and their traditions.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he thought how we handled it was the right way to do. The other guy, the other chief from the Wisconsin, he gave me a casino T-shirt.
Oh, he
so,
did?
so that's how the bones wound up.
All right, I
over
like
there.
it. I like it.
Yep.
So anyway, I also read that you oversaw the construction of the visitor center at the Erie Canal, and I also have footage of you actually speaking at the very first Canal Fest.
Wow.
So
How'd I look? How'd I look?
it was good. It was good. It was great. So we're gonna put that in there too.
Sure.
But I wanted to hear the story about how the visitor center design came about. Like, where did the funding come from?
This is a great story.
It is, okay.
So when I became supervisor, the town had some issues, and I mean, all towns have issues. Upstate New York,
Yeah.
we're challenged. Government is challenged. Local government is challenged, and so I was determined to change the trajectory of where the town was going.
Yeah.
And so looking around, saying, okay, what have we got, as opposed to spending money necessarily?
Like, what resources do we have?
Right, what do we have here? And anybody who grew up here knows that the one thing we have is a lot of water.
Yeah.
Right? There's the Hudson, the Mohawk,
Yeah.
the canal system basically runs right through the middle of the community.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of water.
Yeah.
And obviously that's a great attraction unto itself.
Sure.
That at that time was really not being utilized.
No.
And we had this wonderful thing called the Erie Canal, right?
Yeah.
One of the most impressive engineering feats in American history.
Yeah.
And nobody knew about it.
Yeah.
So we didn't have any money, but we had a plan.
Yeah.
So we put this plan together for the visitor center and what we would do. And we didn't have a design of the building at that point, because
Yeah.
that would have cost money to hire an architect.
Well, sure.
And we didn't have the money.
Yeah.
So, but we had a whole plan together about what we would do, how we would market it, what we thought it could do for the community.
Yeah.
At that time, home prices in the village were going in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
There was less of a sense of community in the village at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And we thought we had a chance to really get things back on stable footing. So the plan sat on a shelf for a year,
Yep.
and then George Pataki became governor.
Yep.
And Pataki loved the canal system.
Yeah.
He had a great affinity for it, so he announced a major funding plan.
Yeah.
Walk straight if you want.
Yeah.
He announced a major funding opportunity
Yep.
for communities who wanted to develop their water, but especially their canal properties.
Water. Yeah.
Well, we had a plan right on the shelf. So 2 days after he made the announcement and said, we're accepting applications now,
Yeah.
we drove to Albany and handed him our plan.
Oh, that's great.
And it was, and he wanted to do something quick. He wanted to get something done quickly
That's
to point to
awesome.
the success of what he was trying to do.
Way to go, George.
Yeah. So like a week later, I get a phone call from the governor's office. You're approved. I think they gave us almost $2 million
Wow.
to build it.
Wow.
And then of course the federal government wanted to get in on the act, and they gave us maybe, I don't know, a long time ago, and obviously I don't have clear
Sure.
total recall, but they gave us probably $500,000-600,000.
Wow.
And so now we had real money.
Yeah.
So we designed it and we built it. We actually, before we built that, we were so focused on getting something done in that area. We actually paid, we had a trailer down there, and a dock maybe 50 feet long, right?
Yeah.
And because we were like, no, we have to put something on this site. We have to start. We got to start somewhere, and this is where we're going to start. So we actually had a small trailer, and then that became a small modular building that was portable, right?
Yeah.
And we had maybe 100 feet of dock, and we started to get a little reputation as a nice little village, nice town. That people on the canal doing the Great Loop, right? They go, the Great Loop. Wherever you start, you go all the way down the East Coast, through the Gulf of Mexico, up the Mississippi, through the Great Lakes, and then back down. So that's what's called the Great Loop. Regardless of what direction you go, it takes several months to do. But you got to have the right kind of boat, obviously. But so we were already committed to doing this, so we could show the governor's people, hey, here's where we are. We're ready to go, and they gave us the money, and we got it built. We didn't use any town money at all. We did it all with grants.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
Now we celebrate it every year with the Canal Fest.
Well, we do Canal Fest. We do tugboat roundup. Tugboat roundup has become a huge success. Canal Fest is still a good event, no question. Tugboat roundup has really become the premier event down there. And I'm a fireworks junkie. So if you're wondering where the fireworks, that's that was all on me. I loved having a great fireworks show. Now we draw several thousand people to the fireworks show. What
a beautiful old tree, huh?
It is, yeah. There's trails, and you know this, right? Trails that ran all up there. I used to climb down, go fishing at the falls. Used to swim at the falls.
Sure, we all did that.
Talk about taking my life in my hands.
I practically lived on those trails. You know.
A lot of time.
So, my question to you is, obviously we both love Waterford. We grew up here. We love it with all of our hearts.
Absolutely.
You know, why is it special to you, Jack?
This sense, that's actually a good question, and I think everybody who grew up here could give you the answer, but I think most people would settle on the idea that there was a strong sense of community. There was a strong sense of taking care of one another and looking out for one another.
Absolutely.
And you knew you were safe. Even if you weren't thinking of it consciously, but looking back, growing up here, you knew you were safe. You knew almost no matter where you were, somebody, an adult somewhere, was aware of where you were.
Absolutely.
And you also knew that you had to be a little bit, not a little bit, you had to be respectful of people, because no one wanted a neighbor to call your mom and dad and say, hey, so and so was a little smart ass to me today. Nobody wanted to have to deal with that. So I think there was a lot more respect, I think, than I really do. And I think that's what made it special. And I'm not saying that's unique to here. But I think that communities like this, neighborhoods like this, they bring that sense of belonging, right?
Absolutely.
They bring that sense of belonging to the people who live here.
That's a good word.
And the other thing is, whenever something happened to somebody, and you still see this in Waterford, and it's a great thing to see, people helped. People rallied. They helped out. If you needed something and you had a problem, or somebody on the street lost a job and they had fallen on hard times, food just started being left on the back doors in places. It was that kind of a community, and you never heard about it. Nobody ever had a big fundraising drive or anything. It just happened organically because everybody cared about it. I'll tell you a funny story.
Okay.
Out where that fire truck is and all that stuff over there, that pit. So we built the original one of those. We built over there. We used shredded tires to put on the bottom of it, so if kids fell off the equipment, they wouldn't get hurt. Doesn't happen often in Waterford, but that became the victim of vandalism.
Oh no!
Somebody started a fire there, right? And of course, you get rubber going. It's a big, black, ugly, smoky fire.
Right.
So the fire goes out, and I was upset by it because, growing up here, we had a park, but there wasn't much in it. And I thought, gee, let's try to put something in there, especially for much younger kids. So I was upset with that, and so I posted a $100 reward to find out who did it. And I never expected to find out, but I was thinking, okay, we have to let people know, if you do these things, we're going to try to find out who you are and hold you accountable.
Sure.
So a television crew comes and said they want to do an interview. I said, okay, fine. So I'm standing out here, and there's a half a dozen kids, young kids, maybe less than 10.
Yep.
And they're running up and down the basketball court. And of course, they see the TV camera. They come over. They're very respectful,
Yep.
you know, as I would expect growing up on this street.
Sure.
So, and I said, we'd like to find out who did this. You know, it's important to the community, you know, to hold people accountable, because this affects people, right? This affects people, and there's just no reason for it.
Yeah.
And I said, so we offered a $100 reward to find out who did it. And one of the kids yells, I know who did it. We all know who did it. It was the funniest. It was the funniest thing. I know who did it. We all know who did it.
We all know who did it.
So I called that kid's mom and I said, hey, listen, your kid, I want you to know he's going to get $100. Absolutely not. She said, my kid doesn't get $100 for doing the right thing.
Wow.
Wow.
Nope.
That kid must
So I
have
sent
been
her
so
$100
upset.
anyway.
You sent
But,
her?
yeah,
Okay.
but her initial reaction was absolutely not. Nope. No, you don't get a reward for doing the right thing. Doing the right thing is its own reward.
Yes, that's true.
It's been, like I said, it was a very happy little walk down memory lane.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep. As we always say, Northside rules.
Yeah.
That's the
All right.
All the years that kept my heart from beating, holding back on a twisted shore.
great job. You're doing a fantastic project. I can't wait to see
thank
it
you very
when you finish.
Well, love so poor. Cause I was living in the pretense, hiding what I felt and playing charm. I'm giving up, giving up. I wanna be free this time. Cause I was living in the pretense, now I'm living real with what I got. I'm standing up, standing up. I'm gonna be free this time. Crash in your favorite and dive into spaces I was hiding from. Crash in your label, I'm nobody's lady. I am ready to soar, ready to soar.
Doing God's work with this, I'll tell you. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah.